Most people think tractors are simple machines. But across real farms and test fields exist tractors so extreme, even experienced farmers didn't believe they were real. These weren't built for attention. They were built because standard machines failed. And one tractor on this list was so powerful, the industry never tried to replace it. Let's start with number 10, ranked 10th, Lamborghini Trattori R8. When most people hear the name Lamborghini, they picture low-slung supercars, screaming engines, and impossible price tags. What almost no one expects is a tractor, quietly working a field. That's what makes the Lamborghini Trattori R8 so hard to believe. This machine doesn't look outrageous at first glance. It's not oversized. It doesn't tower over everything around it. And that's exactly why it feels unreal. Because Lamborghini didn't bring supercar drama to farming, they brought precision. The R8 is built with a level of refinement that many farmers don't associate with agricultural equipment. The cab is unusually quiet. Controls respond smoothly. Steering feels deliberate, almost automotive. For operators used to raw, noisy machines, the first reaction is often disbelief. What surprises people most is the history behind it. Lamborghini didn't move from supercars into tractors. They moved from tractors to supercars. The R8 isn't a novelty or a branding trick. It's the continuation of a company that began by building farm machines after World War II and never stopped. This tractor is produced, sold, and used in real agricultural operations that demand reliability, not attention. And that's what makes it crazy. In a world where tractors are expected to feel rugged and uncomfortable, the R8 feels controlled and composed. It challenges the assumption that farm machinery must sacrifice precision for durability. There's no attempt to shock here. No exaggeration, no spectacle, just a Lamborghini-branded tractor working quietly in a field and forcing anyone who sees it to stop and ask, wait, this is actually real? That's why it earns the number 10 spot on this list. Ranked 9th, New Holland Agriculture Methane T9. For decades, one rule in agriculture felt untouchable. If a tractor was this big, this powerful, and this critical to a farm's operation, it had to run on diesel. The New Holland Methane T9 exists because that rule was challenged. And for a long time, most farmers didn't believe the challenge was serious. At first glance, the Methane T9 looks like a conventional high-horsepower, articulated tractor. It has the size, the stance, and the pulling capacity farmers expect. Nothing about its shape hints at what makes it unusual. The surprise comes when you realize there's no diesel tank behind the engine noise everyone is used to hearing. Instead, this tractor runs on methane gas, fuel that can be produced directly on the farm from manure, crop waste, and organic byproducts. When New Holland introduced the idea, many dismissed it as a concept built for trade shows rather than fields. A tractor of this scale depends on constant torque and reliability. Any hesitation under load can cost hours of work. Trusting a gas-powered system to handle that pressure sounded unrealistic. But the Methane T9 wasn't designed to be symbolic. It was engineered to deliver performance comparable to its diesel counterpart, while drastically reducing emissions and long-term fuel costs. In theory, a farm could fuel this tractor using its own waste, creating an energy loop that diesel could never offer. What makes the Methane T9 truly crazy isn't how it looks, it's what it implies. If a tractor this large can work without diesel, then one of farming's oldest assumptions may no longer be permanent. That quiet challenge is why it earns the number 9 spot. Ranked 8th, Claas Xerion 5000. Most tractors are designed around one unspoken rule. The front is always the front. The Claas Xerion 5000 exists because Claas decided that rule was optional. At first glance, the Xerion looks unusual but not outrageous, until you see it move. This tractor can rotate its cab 180 degrees, allowing the operator to drive and work while facing what is normally the rear. Suddenly, the machine you thought you understood no longer behaves like a tractor at all. For many farmers seeing it for the first time, the reaction is confusion. Why would anyone want to drive backward? The answer lies in how modern heavy implements actually work. Certain tasks like large-scale slurry spreading, forage operations, or heavy drawbar work are safer and more precise when the operator faces the implement directly. Instead of twisting in the seat or relying on mirrors and cameras, the Xerion simply turns the entire driving position around. Mechanically, that decision changes everything. The Xerion 5000 features equal-size wheels, a centrally mounted cab, and a drivetrain designed to deliver consistent power in either direction. It doesn't have a main end. It has two working ends, depending on the job. To traditional tractor users, this feels almost wrong. The proportions look off. The balance seems unconventional. It challenges decades of muscle memory and habit. But once in operation, the logic becomes hard to ignore. Control improves. Visibility improves. Operator fatigue drops. What initially looked like an engineering mistake reveals itself as deliberate overthinking, done correctly. That's what makes the Claas Xerion 5000 crazy, not because it's impractical, but because it dares to redesign something everyone assumed was already perfected. And that's why it takes the number 8 spot. Ranked 7th, John Deere 9RX. For most of its history, a tractor's identity was defined by one thing: its wheels. The John Deere 9RX looks the way it does because John Deere decided that wheels were no longer the best answer. Instead of tires, the 9RX rides on 4 independent tracks, one at each corner. The first time many farmers see it, the reaction is instinctive disbelief. It doesn't look like a tractor. It looks closer to a military vehicle or a piece of earth-moving equipment that wandered into a farm field. But this design wasn't about looks. It was about physics. As tractors grew heavier and implements wider, soil compaction became a serious problem. Traditional wheeled tractors concentrated enormous pressure into small contact areas. The 9RX spreads that weight across a much larger footprint, reducing ground pressure while maintaining extreme pulling power. The result is a machine that feels planted in a way most tractors never do. Under heavy load, the 9RX doesn't spin, hop, or fight for traction. It simply moves forward, slowly, deliberately, and with unsettling confidence. To farmers used to wheels, this behavior feels almost unnatural. There's no visible struggle, no dramatic movement, just controlled force. What makes the 9RX crazy isn't its horsepower. Other tractors can match that. It's the way it redefines stability. 4-track systems were once considered too complex, too expensive, and too specialized for mainstream farming. The 9RX proved that assumption wrong, and in doing so, changed what high-horsepower tractors are expected to look like. It doesn't scream innovation. It just quietly rolls over ground that would stop other machines. And that quiet confidence is exactly why the John Deere 9RX earns the number 7 spot. Ranked 6th, JCB Fastrac 2. For generations, tractors were defined by one limitation everyone accepted: they were never meant to be fast. The JCB Fastrac 2 exists because JCB decided to challenge that belief and then pushed it far beyond what anyone expected. At first glance, the Fastrac 2 doesn't just look unusual, it looks wrong. Its low stance, aerodynamic bodywork, and racing-inspired profile feel completely out of place in agriculture. This isn't a machine designed to crawl through fields. It's a tractor built to move at speeds most farm equipment was never designed to survive. And it did more than move fast. In 2019, the Fastrac 2 set the official world record for the fastest tractor, reaching over 135 miles per hour on the Bonneville Salt Flats. At that speed, the idea of a tractor stops making sense altogether. What makes this achievement truly crazy isn't just the number on the speedometer. It's the engineering required to keep a tractor stable, controllable, and intact at speeds normally reserved for race cars. Suspension geometry, steering precision, braking systems, and aerodynamics all had to be rethought from the ground up. To most farmers, this machine looks like a publicity experiment, and in some ways it is. But it also proves a deeper point. The traditional limits placed on agricultural machinery are often cultural, not mechanical. The Fastrac 2 was never meant to plow a field. It was meant to answer a question no one thought worth asking. How fast could a tractor really go? That answer is why it earns the number 6 spot. Ranked 5th, Fendt Trisix prototype. For most of modern agriculture, there has been a clear assumption: if 4 wheels aren't enough, add more weight, not more wheels. The Fendt Trisix exists because Fendt questioned that logic. At first sight, the Trisix looks like a design mistake. 6 massive wheels, 3 axles, and proportions that feel stretched beyond what a tractor should be. Many farmers who first saw it assumed it was a computer rendering or a one-off showpiece, not something intended to work. But the Trisix was very real. Developed as a prototype, the Trisix combined 3 driven axles, equal-sized wheels, and a continuously variable transmission to distribute power more evenly across the ground. The goal wasn't spectacle, it was traction, stability, and reduced soil compaction under extreme load. From an engineering standpoint, the logic was sound. More wheels meant more contact area, more contact meant less stress on the soil, and in theory, better control of massive implements. So why did it never reach production? Because it was too much tractor. The Trisix was expensive, complex, and unfamiliar. Farmers didn't know how to categorize it. It wasn't quite a standard-wheeled tractor, and it wasn't a tracked machine either. Dealers struggled to explain it. Operators hesitated to trust something that looked so radically different from decades of experience. That hesitation ended the project. What makes the Fendt Trisix truly crazy isn't that it failed, it's that it worked, yet still couldn't find a place in the market. It proved that engineering solutions don't always survive human comfort zones. And that's why this 6-wheeled experiment earns the number 5 spot. Ranked 4th. Claas IH Quadtrac. At some point, tractor design hit a wall. Horsepower kept increasing. Implements kept getting wider. And traditional wheels simply couldn't cope anymore. The Claas IH Quadtrac was the response to that breaking point. And when it first appeared, many farmers didn't know what they were looking at. Instead of wheels, the Quadtrac runs on 4 independent tracks, each able to flex and move separately. The result is a machine that looks less like a tractor and more like a mechanical creature gripping the ground at all 4 corners. What makes this design so unsettling is how unnatural it feels at first. Tractors weren't supposed to bend in the middle, while each corner moves independently. To operators used to rigid frames and predictable motion, the Quadtrac looks almost unstable while standing still. But once it starts working, the logic becomes undeniable. Each track maintains constant ground contact, spreading enormous weight evenly and drastically reducing soil compaction. On uneven terrain, the tractor doesn't fight the ground. It adapts to it. Under heavy draft loads, there's no wheel slip, no hopping, no drama, just steady, controlled movement. This is where the Quadtrac earns its reputation. It wasn't designed to look aggressive. It was designed to dominate conditions that stop other machines. Wet fields, loose soil, extreme loads. Farmers who doubted the complexity quickly learned that the system wasn't fragile. It was brutally effective. What makes the Steiger Quadtrac crazy isn't the power alone. It's the confidence. A machine this large shouldn't move this smoothly. A tractor this heavy shouldn't be this gentle on the soil. Yet it is. That contradiction is exactly why the Claas IH Quadtrac claims the number 4 spot. Ranked 3rd. Versatile 610 DT Delta Track. There's a point where tractor design stops feeling agricultural and starts feeling industrial. The versatile 610 DT Delta Track lives exactly at that edge. At first sight, the 610 DT doesn't look innovative, it looks intimidating. Massive bodywork, sharp angles, and instead of 4 tracks or wheels, it rides on 2 enormous triangular track systems that make it appear more like heavy mining equipment than a farm tractor. This design wasn't chosen for aesthetics. It was chosen because Versatile wanted maximum ground contact with minimum complexity. Each Delta Track unit spreads weight across a huge footprint, delivering extreme traction while keeping the drivetrain mechanically simpler than 4-track systems. For many farmers, that trade-off felt risky. 2 tracks mean less redundancy. If something goes wrong, there's no backup corner to carry the load. In steering a machine this large using track articulation rather than wheel angle feels unnatural the first time behind the controls. But once under load, the Delta Trac's behavior becomes unsettlingly calm. The tractor doesn't surge or struggle. It doesn't hunt for traction. It simply pushes forward with a steady force that feels almost excessive. Implements that would overwhelm other tractors become manageable. The machine feels less like it's pulling and more like it's pressing the earth into compliance. What makes the 610DT truly crazy isn't the horsepower number. It's the confidence required to build a tractor this large with so little compromise. This is not a machine designed to be friendly. It's designed to work where margins are thin and hesitation costs money. That unapologetic brutality is exactly why the versatile 610 DT Delta Trac earns the bronze position on this list. Ranked second, Doe Triple D. At first glance, the Doe Triple D looks wrong. Not outdated, not experimental, just wrong. 2 tractor fronts, 2 engines, 2 steering wheels. No clear front or back. Most people assume it's a publicity stunt or a one-off prototype that never worked. But the truth is far more surprising. The Doe Triple D was a production tractor built in the United Kingdom during the 1960s, not for show, but because farmers had a problem no single tractor could solve. At the time, British farms were expanding faster than tractor horsepower. Large plows demanded more pulling force, but bigger engines didn't exist yet. So Doe engineers did something that sounds absurd even today. They bolted 2 tractors together, nose to nose. Not welded, not improvised, engineered. Each side kept its own engine, transmission, steering, and controls. 2 operators could drive it, or 1 operator could control both. The result was a machine with massive traction, perfectly balanced weight, and pulling power that no conventional tractor of its era could match. And it worked. On heavy clay soils, the Triple D could pull equipment that stopped every other tractor in the field. No wheel slip, no loss of control. The reason it looks unbelievable is because modern tractors evolved past the need for such solutions. Today, we solve power limits with electronics, hydraulics, and enormous single engines. But in the 1960s, this was raw engineering logic. No marketing, no styling, no attempt to make it look normal. Just a machine built to do a job, even if it made people uncomfortable. And that's why the Doe Triple D earns its place near the top of this list. Not because it's the biggest, not because it's the fastest, but because it looks like something that should never have existed, yet quietly proved itself in real fields with real farmers doing real work. In first place, Big Bud 16 V747. If you've never seen the Big Bud 16 Bag 747 before, your first reaction is usually disbelief, not admiration, not excitement, disbelief, because this doesn't look like a tractor that should exist in the real world. Built in the late 1970s in Montana, the Big Bud 16 by 747 wasn't designed for records, headlines, or publicity. It was built for one farmer, with one problem that no manufacturer could solve. He needed to pull equipment so massive that every available tractor simply failed. So instead of downsizing the job, the engineers did the opposite. They ignored every practical limit the industry accepted at the time. The result was a machine weighing over 100,000 pounds, powered by a 16-cylinder engine producing more than 1,000 horsepower, riding on tires taller than most people. Standing next to it, scale stops making sense. The Big Bud doesn't just dwarf other tractors, it makes them look like design studies. What's truly crazy isn't how big it is, it's what happened after. Despite decades of technological progress, despite electronics, automation, and modern materials, no tractor has ever replaced it. Not because it was inefficient, not because it failed, but because building something bigger stopped making economic sense. The industry moved towards smarter machines, not stronger ones, toward precision instead of brute force. And yet, more than 40 years later, the Big Bud 16 Phi 747 still exists. It was restored. It still runs. And it still does exactly what it was built to do. One machine, one purpose, no successor. That's why this tractor isn't just the craziest on this list. It's the reason the list even exists. Because when people say, "There's no way that's real," this is the machine they're thinking of. These tractors weren't built to impress. They were built because normal machines failed. If you respect engineering that pushed past limits, subscribe to Tractor World. We'll see you in the next one.